Welcome to Contemporary Black Voices, where we tell our stories our way. And my name is Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell, and sitting with me today are my seat buddies, Chris Dawkins and Caleb Alexander. And we also have a special guest today, Chris Herring. And I've met Chris a couple months back when he was running for mayor. And there was something in his presentation and his interview, especially when we interviewed him, that told me that this man knows something about Dr. Claude Anderson's PowerNomics. So we're going to be revisiting PowerNomics and hopefully get everybody involved in the discussion. And the question, I guess the overarching question is, are we ready to do this? So let's get started. So Carl, go ahead and put up that first presentation, please. So we already have a national plan to empower Black America, and it's called PowerNomics. It came out in 2001 by Dr. Claude Anderson. And before we get started, Chris Dawkins did contact the family to get permission to use PowerNomics. I'm sorry, I'm an academic, and I just want to make sure that we can use certain phrasing. So anyway, it came out in 2001, and there were 5 points to PowerNomics. First of all, power, where Black Americans must organize their resources to gain leverage. 2, group economics is essential, where you circulate that money within the Black community before it exits. 3, building institutions such as schools, banks, hospitals, media outlets to control our own narrative and future. 4, political independence, where we engage in politics strategically and not as a loyalist to any party. And then 5, learning from others, where there is a ethnocentrism and strange alliances help other groups build power. So you guys are familiar with the PowerNomics?
Very.
Okay. So Chris, what were your thoughts when you first heard about it?
I think I met Dr. Claude Anderson back in 1980 something. He was actually head of education at the University of Florida, I think it was. One of those universities in Florida, and he was there. I also the city of Detroit wanted him, he was talking about these fisheries. Right. And he was talking about putting these fisheries in Black communities because a lot of Black folks ate fish. So he was saying, now you're getting to the point to where they're doing farm-raised fish, and especially catfish, and we could do that in the community, and that would be an economic way for us to really do this. So they have this big thing, and he's actually from Detroit. So he goes back to Detroit, and they're wanting him to do this, and we had this big meeting at Coble Hall in Detroit, and all of a sudden it just falls apart. And that seems to have been not only for PowerNomics, but almost everything that we've done in the Black community. We have good plans. I think his plan was solid as to what he wanted or the way to go about doing it. However, for whatever reason, it always falls apart. It never materializes, and it never materialized in Detroit. So I think the plan that he has, and I can't go into the whole thing now, but I believe it's a good plan, but it's kind of like those plans at the city or the states. You do them, you put them up on the shelf, and nothing ever happens of them. And I think that's kind of what's happened with this.
So Chris 2.0, okay. You've been involved in the various chambers. Do you see this plan coming back into play more often, or are we too busy trying to make a personalized plan to meet everybody's idea as to how to move the Black community forward?
Yeah, that's a great question that you ask. first, in order for a plan to work, you have to have a conscious, you have to be thinking about it. So I guess the question would be, are Black Americans actually thinking about a plan to come back to what Dr. Anderson would call PowerNomics? I remember, like Chris, I do have a story about Dr. Anderson. He was one of our guest speakers when I chaired the Texas Association for African American Chambers, and so when he would speak to our audience, of course, his points resonated deeply because Black chambers support Black businesses, and with Dr. Anderson's message of being self-sufficient, and basically saying that we should be supporting each other is a fundamental thought that we should embrace. However, for Black people in America, and the reason why PowerNomics even exists is because we tend to think differently than most people, and we typically have to fight to compete to get our own business when other ethnicities and races naturally do business within each other without even having to talk about it.
Yeah, you start thinking about it. The Asian community, they get the loans. I guess the banks are telling them, go start your business in the Black community. You've got the Arab Muslim type groups come in, go start in the Black community. We don't get that same messaging. So.
But there is a reason for that, and now that I'm on the global or international side of chamber work, I learned that America really shapes its relationships with various cultures from the State Department perspective. So every nation has their own treaty, so to speak, with the United States, and that treaty has different levels of support. So when we talk about, for instance, the Asian community really being in most urban communities around the United States, that wasn't because they thought of the opportunity themselves. It was because they were given provisions within those treaties to be able to start businesses in urban communities where we happen to be. So over time, that's kind of what has happened. And but I will say that even from a religious perspective, I mean, Jewish people tend to recycle their dollars more than any other community, and they do it not as Black people. We'll have these campaigns like Buy Black, and if you think about it, there's no other people in America that has a focused attention to buy from within their own race or ethnicity like we do, which means that we are problematic because we'll spend our dollar everywhere else in less than 30 minutes than to be able to spend that dollar confidently within the marketplace in which we exist.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to come back and continue this discussion.